Just going back to in terms of the defence spending and our commitment to Ukraine and the discussion that actually, is there going to be an extra money? I mean, is defence spending a vote loser rather than a vote winner? And that's why it keeps losing out.
Well, General Dannatt and I don't always see eye to eye, but in this case, I think, I agree with almost everything that he said. Defence does need more money, but defence needs to know and work out how to spend the money it's got already in a much more efficient way. We are spending hugely more than the Poles. They've just bought hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tanks. We're upgrading 148 to Challenger 3 level. We do not get the sort of value for money in defence that many other nations seem to be able to produce. Now, we have different expenditures with the nuclear deterrent and with everything else, but we do get a lot wrong. There needs to be a twin-pronged approach. And the other thing that General Dannatt mentioned was about people taking responsibility for the decisions that are made, and that politicians are avoiding the difficult questions because it all comes down to interdepartmental priorities. And Ben Wallace wrote about this in the Telegraph today.
The former Defence Secretary, of course. Yeah.
Former Defence Secretary blamed the generals that had retired 20 and 30 years ago and colonels that had retired 20 and 30 years ago, rather than putting any of the blame at his own feet, who'd been one of the longest serving Secretary of States for Defence that we've had. And then when it comes to General Dannatt and the other chiefs that are around the place, none of these chiefs have ever resigned over cuts being brought into the military, which would send a very clear political statement. They've all sat there to the end, and then they're very good at criticising decisions that were made on their watch once they've retired.
You're quite right. We see this immediately as soon as they're about to retire or just after retired, we do get that criticism, and then they speak out. But again, they know they can't maintain that job. A lot of them might feel I'm still better and more use in that job. But this is a very, very big issue, isn't it? In terms of people say we can't afford to spend this money. We need to spend it on things, people suffering right now. But as we see, when we don't have the deterrent power of a strong military, and when we don't exercise that, we then see things like the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Because Vladimir Putin didn't think there would be a strong reaction by the European powers, because we weren't that concerned about it. And then we have huge costs. We would not have been still dealing with the massive inflationary pressures of the of energy prices if it wasn't for that. So we'll end up paying somehow.
Oh, we do, and if we don't recognise there's a balance when it comes to security, from our domestic security, whether that be dealing with the policing on the streets, or whether that be dealing with problems in the health service and all the rest of it, because of lack of economic growth. We can improve economic growth by investing in our defence, our domestic industrial base, our defence industrial base. These billions that are being donated to Ukraine for ammunition, the ammunition's been manufactured in the UK or Germany or the United States. If we're manufacturing it in the UK, it's UK jobs, it's UK supply chain, it's all the service industries that are supporting that. That's more tax into the exchequer. That's more money for the health service and everything else. So, in a way, it's a good thing. And also, the Ukrainians are laying their lives down to protect us. If we ever got into a big conflict, and we're on a clear path potentially to a big conflict, no matter what Chief of the Defence Staff says, this is the first time in 40 years I can see a clear path. If we ever get onto that, the whole country on total war footing, watch the effect that would have on everything.
Absolutely.
Everyone's lives would change.
Philip Ingram, thank you very much for that cheery conversation.